Hi, I'm Melissa Rambaran.
And I'm Candice Milano.
Welcome back to The Build Up, presented by Brown Harris Stephens and Guaranteed Rate, where we discuss the secrets of building wealth through real estate.
Today we have Liz Faircloth, the co-founder of Real Estate InvestHER, who has built a thriving platform and community helping women take charge of their financial futures through real estate.
I'm Brian Scott Cohen, one of the top loan originators in the country, and the #1 mortgage originator at Guaranteed Rate Infinity. Guaranteed Rate Infinity arguably has the most advanced tech in the industry. Our completely digital loan process makes it easy and efficient for homeowners, from a 15-minute pre-approval to the digital application and through closing. My team and I would love to help you get into the home of your dreams.
From residential and commercial closings to litigation, Romer DeBoss is your full-service real estate law firm. We blend big firm knowledge with boutique-level attention, delivering outcomes that exceed every expectation. Contact us at romerdeboss.com.
All right, Liz, welcome to The Build Up.
Good to see you both, and so glad to be here.
Of course, we're happy to have you on, and we want to talk about your journey. And we know you didn't just jump into investing. You came in with a mission. We want to start there. So what drew you to real estate investing initially, and how did that evolve into creating InvestHER?
Sure. So when I was going to school, I was in grad school getting my degree in social work, of all things. And at the same time, my brother-in-law handed me Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And so many people, and a lot of people have gotten their start that way, if you will. And I didn't really want to read that, but he said, you got to read this book. So I said, okay. So I read it, and it sounds so cliche, but it definitely shifted my thinking. And I didn't really know much about passive income and investing. I grew up in a very hardworking, middle-class family that you work hard for anything that you have. I never really got the experience of money working hard for you. And that book really opened my eyes to that concept. And then it talks a lot about sales. It talks about real estate. It talks about, being able to do that in your own life. So with that knowledge, I didn't have much with just that book. However, I started taking classes, and then I met my now husband of 20 years. We were just started dating around the same time. So we attended all the RIA groups, the meetups. And at that time there wasn't much online, obviously. This was 2004. I'm dating myself. But that gave us our start of educating, and we educated ourselves for about a year. And then we found a duplex for sale right outside of Philadelphia, by going door to door, if you will, cold calling and just doing whatever it took to find an opportunity. And we made an offer, it was accepted. And we got a loan from my father for about $30,000 to take care of the down money, as well as the initial kind of construction costs. And so that was our first, property, if you will. We've been able to grow our portfolio to a couple thousand units now in 5 states over many, a couple of decades now, with some twists and turns, but mostly focusing on the multifamily space. And during that tenure, I can share a little bit about how InvestHER was born, if you'd like, but that's how I got my start in investing.
Yes, we're definitely going to want to talk a lot about InvestHER. But before we dive into that, thank you for sharing your introduction into real estate. It's amazing how many people have been piqued their interest by that book, through this podcast. So many people bring up that book. So definitely, if you haven't read it yet, you have to read the book. It's so influential for so many people. We grew up similarly in, middle-class immigrant families. So no one in our families, learned about investing or real estate investment. So like you, we had to educate ourselves, and why, now our collective organizations and podcasts is so important with the education, because we all had to kind of learn that ourselves. But it's great because we're all proof that you can actually, educate yourself and get into it without necessarily needing a lot of real estate pedigree in your family. So talk to us a little bit, though, how your view of success has changed from those first deals that you just talked about to what you're doing now.
Yeah, it's funny. When we started, you have these grandiose plans of, okay, how many properties do I want to own by which date? And you get a little focused on doors or properties. Somewhere along the way in this business, and maybe unfortunately because of social media, who knows why, but more is not better. And so I think my definition of success is that early on, it was about accumulation, right? Growth, doing as much as we could to grow the business. And not that we're not growing our business now, but it's more about creating a life that I want. And time becomes more valuable. Time is more valuable in my 40s now than it was in my 20s. I would have done whatever it took to get something done. And I still have that in me, right? I'm a very hard worker. I will do whatever it takes. I don't give up easily. That's just my nature. However, I think the definition of success is being able to take a break and saying, what do I really want? And also allowing other people, and not in my case, more other women, to say those questions of, what is a life that I really appreciate and desire and enjoy look like? And these are just questions we just don't ask ourselves along the way. It's just like, do what's in front of you to do, make things happen. And these scripts are given to us, I think, by society versus like, what do I really want? And I teach that to the women in our community. Like, what do you really want and need? I teach that to my daughter, who's 8, who also tells me the same thing all the time. She's like, well, you told me to express myself. I'm like, I did, Sam. I did. Just not to me. No. But that's an important part. So I think the definition of success when I started was more is better. And the definition of success now is the quality of what I'm doing is the key, and with whom I'm doing it with. Is this bringing me energy? Is this taking energy? It's more than just the dollars and cents.
Yes, we can agree more. Candice and I, we're business partners here in New York City, and we have that same sort of mindset in terms of, less is more in that sense. And we're very selective as well in who we work with. And initially, of course, you said it best. You have to kind of go out there, work as hard as you can to really try to make it. But now we're a lot more selective. And I think that's part of the journey, right? Is being able to work so hard to be able to get to that point where you can be selective. So we completely understand and relate to that. So I know we started talking about InvestHER, and you kind of teased that a little bit. So we want to circle back. Talk to us about how that came about.
Yeah, it's an interesting path, because at the time that my husband and I had just quit my job twice. I actually quit the same job twice. And I had my first child in 2013. And around the same time, financially, our properties were paying us, enough to live on. We were growing our business. I just had this healthy, beautiful little baby boy who, was a blessing most of the time, right? Minus the colic, but it was a beautiful blessing to me and my husband. And all these things on paper was like, wow, you got it all, you left your corporate, you're doing what you want to do full time as an entrepreneur, you're making the money that you want to make. And I actually felt really like time was passing me by. Something was missing for me as a new mom, leaving my corporate work and now joining my husband full time. And something was kind of missing. And what I realized was it was like the purpose part. I love real estate. I always really appreciated supporting other people on their journeys and empowering other people and seeing other people grow. That's just kind of how I've been my whole life. And so that was missing for me. And so I, at the same time, ironically met Andressa. She was going through a divorce, completely different, situation. And we both found ourselves wanting to connect with other women. We went to conferences, we went to meetups, we went to events. This was 8 years ago. And we just didn't see a lot of women like us that were growing their wealth, were building their businesses, that actually like talking about this kind of stuff versus other things that other women may talk about. So we're like, where are these women? We knew that they existed. We just didn't know them. So with where I was in my life, wanting more purpose, where she was at a trajectory with her divorce and saying, no, I need to rebuild, and do something purposeful. We joined forces and said, what if we started a podcast and just interviewed women? We were told early on we'd run out of women to to interview, because there's not that many women investors, which is funny, because 500 episodes later, we have not run out of women at all to interview. And what started as a passion and a mission has now, really been moved into a movement and created a movement. And that's how we see this. It's more than a business. It's more than just a company. It's a movement of really supporting women taking control of their financial future. And we do believe real estate, as well as other investments, will get you there versus just making money. This is about, okay, how do I preserve it? How do I build it? How do I grow it? How do I invest in meaningful projects that are going to grow my pocketbook, but also grow, something meaningful as well? And so we started with just both of us, wanting more purpose ourselves. We then were able to say, okay, how can we create that for other women? And now have built a national network of women, high-level women, driven women that are building their portfolios and learning from each other and doing it together.
That's amazing. That's very admirable, right? To empower women. That's part of our mission with Tower, and part of this, podcast is just really empowering, people, but especially women, and how to take charge of their future in terms of investing, especially in real estate, like you said. So what are some of the core investing strategies you teach in your community, both for beginners and those who are looking to scale?
Yeah. And before I share that, if I can share quickly that what's interesting is, like, back when we started, we knew we had a hunch that this was, are other women wanting this information, needing community, et cetera. Now the stats are in the favor that there's an enormous wealth transfer that's happening, right? In terms of, Google it, great wealth transfer. And so what's happening over the years, in the next 3 to 5 years, is that more and more trillions of dollars are coming to the hands of women, specifically women in this country. And when you research where is their confidence in managing money versus investing money, statistically higher on the managing side, lower on the investing side. So, I think it's like 19%. So why we exist is that we want to increase that, because when women do invest themselves, they're making the right calls. They make the right decisions. I mean, no one bats a 400, right? Unless you're maybe playing in the World Series right now. But women do make the right calls, and we just want to see them doing it more so they can grow their income and their futures, and they're leaving a legacy for their families. So I just wanted to share that context. It's funny because I think a lot of communities and networks exist, quite honestly, to just teach people, and in our case, women, one strategy or this one way to wealth, right? There's just one way to wealth. And I really don't believe there is. I believe that women all have a different, you're in a different season of life. If you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, we tend to demographically 30 to 60 is really, it's a decent range for those of the women in our network. And they're really trying to create lives that they really love being part of, to be honest. And they're not just doing things out of duty. They're doing things out of kind of joy, and they're building wealth along the way. So from a strategy perspective, we always say there's 3 pieces of the puzzle. Are women getting exposure to strategic knowledge? A lot of the women that we see kind of know how to buy a property, right? Or there's so much content on the tactics, how to find the next deal, how to find the right market. I mean, I could tell you all day about those things. That's not what limits women. That's not what's actually holding women back. It's actually the strategic part of, like, okay, I was a woman on a mastermind. We have a mastermind call, and a woman was grappling with a decision to sell a portfolio. And she said, I made a decision to sell 50 units in North Carolina, and here I am second guessing myself. So on the call, we kind of worked through with her about her intuition and how she's not trusting herself. I could have tactically given her some input about, is it the right time to sell? Are you making the right return on your investment? All important things. And we ended up talking about. But I think the value of why we exist is that it's not just the tactical. It's really about her trusting her intuition. She's like, you're right. I'm not trusting my intuition. I don't think enough women trust their intuition. So that was the conversation versus it being the tactic or the strategy. So when I say strategic knowledge, it's strategic knowledge about how to win, obviously in real estate, but more importantly, how to trust yourself and get out of our own way. So that's number one. Number two is it's all about the network. And so our women in our community are from California to New York and everywhere in between. And these are women who want to be around high level women who are driven, who are doing it, who are in the business. And they're doing it alone. women really have like a master's degree in doing things alone. And so what we are like, stop doing things alone. We know that you could do anything yourself because we all have that badge of honor. Quite honestly, give a woman anything to do, they get shit done. Excuse my French. However, it's about doing it with others and doing it with a little bit more of a path of least resistance. So a lot of the women in our community are growing their portfolios and they're going to Home Depot. They're hiring the GC. They're even doing the cleaning of their Airbnbs. And it's like, hold on, why are you doing why are you doing the cleaning as well? And so it's about that network. We can't, you go a little faster when you have a network. And the third one is, do women have access to real opportunities, to partners? We could talk about investing all day, but are women surrounding themselves with opportunities to actually take, steps towards buying properties themselves or partner with people? And so while we're not saying, yeah, just do this one investment, self-storage is the way to go, multifamily, short-term rentals, there's so many different strategies or different markets. We're not agnostic to that. We're just like, what's going to serve you and your lifestyle, and then partner up with people to do it together. So that's the three kind of pillars that we really embody and want women learning, doing it with others, and obviously getting access to real opportunities, not the old boys club, but real opportunities that are actually going to put money in your pocket today.
Correct. Yes, we couldn't agree more that there's definitely not one strategy towards wealth building. That's why on our show, we interview so many different investors who specialize in different markets, niches, asset classes, everything, because again, it's so many different ways towards wealth. And we couldn't agree more about the network and the community and how that not only supports one another, but also provides opportunities for partnerships, for deals. And lastly, like you said, women's intuition is one of our strongest assets. And so we need to encourage each other to trust that more and more and not second guess ourselves just because we might be in a new environment of investing. And so I couldn't agree more with everything that you really emphasize and focus on. But can you share, how do you balance building your portfolio and building a life so that you and others won't experience burnout or lose sight of what they're really going after?
It's a great question that actually comes up all the time. There was another woman on last night's mastermind, was an active one. And the woman's like, I think I'm burnt out. And she had about 10 properties. She's like, I'm just burnt out. I don't know how to get out of that sense of burnout. And so some of the questions that I asked, and I think is really helpful for folks listening to ask themselves, is like, we use these words burnout, but it's a big term. It's like saying that your new boyfriend or girlfriend should communicate more. Like it's a big term. Well, what does that mean? That can mean so many things. I think burnout is also a catchphrase. We use it a lot, and I don't think people know exactly what that looks like for them. And so with this particular woman, and I think it's a question we have to ask ourselves, is when we're feeling burnout, what about that? Are we feeling burnout? Real estate investing is a comprehensive process, right? It's from finding a deal to financing it, to quite honestly, the hardest part, which is managing it, whether it's a flip or managing, the property, and then stabilizing it, right? And then doing it over again, doing the process over again and trying to grow your portfolio. So one part of that process takes somebody who's really extroverted and finds deals. Another piece of the puzzle is like core operational of managing budget and people. So two different types of people, two different skill sets. And so what ends up happening is that so many of the women in our community are doing all of those. They're doing ops, they're doing acquisition, they're doing financing. Oh yeah. And they're doing the bookkeeping too. And that's psychotic, right? And it's not even psychotic in the sense of it's too much. It's completely different skill sets. So as I was talking to this particular, one of our members, she's like, I just like finding the deal. I love putting it together. I don't want to manage it anymore. That's the part of her journey that's burning her out. But yet we say we're burnt out. Well, part of it she's quite good at and enjoys still. So I think the first thing is to really say, okay, if I'm feeling burnout, whether it's my career or my life or this particular investment, dissecting it a little bit further to say, what about this is burning me out? Is it because I'm doing too much of it? Should I be getting more support? Women are doing, like, bookkeeping is a perfect example. I don't know how many women in our community who have countless properties who are doing all their bookkeeping. That is literally the number one thing you should be outsourcing if you are not a bookkeeper yourself. like that's, let's start there. Anyone listening, you have, and I don't care if you have one property or 10 properties. It's great to actually get a bookkeeper when you have one property, if you're looking to grow, because that's when they can get your systems in place, right? So the balancing act is really being mindful of where is your strengths? Like this woman, she's strong on this, like the front end, and really allowing yourself to be that. I think women put the pressure on themselves that they need to be all those things. We really do. And I don't know if that's conditioning. I don't know if it's gender roles, right? That's a whole other episode for another day. But I do think women, right? We do. It's like this script, be amazing at everything you do. And it's like, hold on. I don't think men are taught that. Honestly, I don't. And I want women to really own what they are great at and let go of the rest. And real estate investing can be tricky because it takes both. It actually takes a really good operational, whether it's you or someone else, and also raising money or putting deals together. There's this whole creative, visionary type of personality that's needed too. So it's tricky because if you're doing it all, you're probably doing one better than the other.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think that's really good advice too. And also just a reminder that, we don't possess all the skill sets needed for this, and to outsource where it makes sense, to really preserve our energy, our time, and focus that into what we do best, what renews our energy, because there's definitely something along that whole list of responsibilities that you mentioned where it just depletes you because it's just not what you either enjoy or what you're good at. And so you spend so much time just struggling with that one thing. And so I think that's really good advice, and also a reminder, because it is somewhat, common sense, but we yet always are so quick to just still continue
fall into the trap.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The easier part for me because I was someone who never outsourced anything. I was like a badge of honor. I do it all myself. And the easiest place to start for women that I've seen is at home. So whether that's cutting your, grass cutting, and I mean simple things, right? Maybe once a month, if you don't want to do every week, getting some support for your household. I mean, I'm talking low dollar amounts. I'm not saying, have a business manager come into your house to take over your entire life, right? That's a step. Not that I'm opposed to that, but do something that you can buy someone's time, a couple hours a month. And it starts to show you, wow, I don't have to do this. I can actually get some support. Everyone can probably, that's listening, could do 1 or 2 hours, 1 or 2 small things. That's not going to be too cost prohibitive, but give them this, like they're building their muscle of outsourcing. I used to cut my grass, and me and all like the men in my community would be cutting their grass together always on a Sunday. And I'm like, what am I doing? What am I doing? My husband's like, I don't know what you're doing. I would have hired someone a while ago. But I'm like, why am I doing this? Do I feel the need to? Okay, can I afford to hire someone to cut my grass? Yes. Why am I still doing it? Okay. Do I feel bad that I physically can't? I went through this whole process, and I never looked back, but that was $50, right? Every other week. I could afford that. So I think we need to sometimes look at the simple things in our life and saying, what can I let go of? So it starts to build this muscle so you can potentially hire a VA or make, start outsourcing maybe property management. Those are harder ones to go to first. So I always say, like, build your muscle with something simpler, even if it means 1 or 2 hours, or even if you buy groceries and then you start to get them delivered. That's outsourcing.
I was just going to say Instacart is my favorite app.
Simple stuff, right? But it's all levels, right? I know. I as well. I'm like, I don't want to ever step foot in a grocery store. It gives me allergies.
We understand. And again, it's great advice to just start at home, start with something small and then go from there. But we'll leave you with one last question, which is, what is one thing that you do to stay grounded outside of real estate?
I do a lot. I need to do a lot of things to keep me grounded, but I start the day always with a short prayer and meditation, and even a short meditation. And that really helps me stay grounded to, my higher self, and that, the issues or the things that are kind of taking, are on my human mind. There's something bigger at work, right? And I need to settle myself and ground myself every day. If I don't, the way the world kind of takes over a bit, and you get a little bit in that weird world. So to me, that's core. I have to do that and take my vitamins, of course.
Yeah, we practice those
Yes.
as well and find it essential to, like you said, really managing all the things that we do, right? Investing, work, home, life, everything. So thank you so much, Liz, for joining us today. You've shared so many valuable insights that I know we are going to
Great
take.
conversation,
Yeah,
yeah.
we're going to apply, and also our listeners as well.
Thank you for having me.
What do you really need to know about buying or selling a home? First, it's serious business. And it's complicated. There's a lot of money on the table, and emotion too. You need an agent who knows the ropes. So, whether you're buying or selling your home, work with professionals who have a mastery of the craft.
So have you seen these headlines? AI is coming for us, girl. I keep seeing these headlines everywhere that AI is really coming for the real estate industry.
I know, it's really wild, but it's also very exciting. The National Association of Realtors, known as NAR, just came out with a study showing that about 70% of agents are using some form of AI in their business, whether that's helping them to automate listing descriptions or other parts of the business. They're now starting to empower themselves through AI technology.
I mean, we as agents, we utilize AI as well. I think it's a huge time saver. And as you know, in real estate, especially on the brokerage side, time is our greatest asset. So for sure, it's been helpful just from our experience. I can only imagine it being on a grander scale.
Yes, I think there's certain ways that AI is definitely helpful in our business, helps us to automate and to delegate, but there's definitely ways in which it thinks it could maybe pop out in a pricing analysis or to run comps, but we know that that's not really a way that it's not really accurate with that. I mean, maybe that technology will improve in the future, but if you were to put in a prompt to run pricing for a certain building or property, it's very likely that that's going to be inaccurate.
No, for sure. I mean, I think especially with comms, that's something that you have to sit down and really analyze it. For sure, it can help you in some aspect, but you really need to sit there. And it's just part of the human element that's needed for comps. And also, too, you know, when you think about how clients are looking at this, right? They want that human interaction. So it can help, you know, just be a resource to the agents.
Couldn't agree more. I mean, EY came out with a report that said technology can replace or replicate process, but not presence. And that just really emphasizes the fact that you won't be able to replace the human presence, interaction, and the nuance that comes with years and years of experience and just that gut feeling about sometimes what a property's worth or maybe an issue with the property. Those are the things that, you know, a machine cannot, you know, take from us.
I 100% agree. And also, let's talk about the sales side of things, right? We as agents here in the city, we tried to do that. Remember in 2020 during COVID, I think that was a really good experiment where we had the building that we were selling. We were very eager to get it on the market. You know, we just wanted to see some sort of sales activity. We were like cooped up all for months and we tried to do that. That didn't go very well. No one wanted to get sold over a computer. And so that, I think we're safe in that aspect. So I don't think in that case that AI is really going to be a threat. But again, look, like there are pros and cons to this, right? It could be beneficial, but if you're thinking about it being totally a replacement for a human, definitely not.
No, as we know really well, real estate is emotional. So buyers are still looking for that experience where someone can, you know, sense their hesitation, they can read their body language. And so for that reason, you know, again, AI or tech in a computer and machine is not going to be able to replace that part of the buying process.
I really love that point because especially for the sales side of things, you really need to read that body language. And also, too, it's just something about selling. You kind of want human interaction.
Yeah, definitely. But I think that there's the efficiency factor, which we cannot ignore because it's definitely improving the way that we do business, and not just in real estate, but obviously across all of the industries. And so JLL just put out a report saying that it can reduce transaction time by 30%. I see this as a positive because in many ways, real estate's been very antiquated and very bogged down by you know, practices that are definitely behind the times. So that means, though, that, you know, we now have a much shorter transaction time than we used to.
I really love that. So maybe the future isn't human versus machine. It's just human plus machine. It's just really to give us that extra edge.
I know. I think that the headlines are, like trigger or clickbait, of like, AI is going to take our jobs and we're not going to have jobs, but it's not. I don't think that's really what the reality is going to be. Like you said, it's more of a new way of doing business, utilizing and harnessing this really powerful technology, but of course not replacing the human component and what makes us so great at what we do.
Exactly. We're going to keep our eyes on this, but, like we said, we ourselves utilize AI and it's been extremely beneficial. So I think this is just a positive.
For sure.
That wraps up this episode of The Build Up. If you found value here today, please subscribe, share this with someone ready to level up in real estate, and join us next time as we continue breaking down the path to building wealth, one conversation at a time.
This podcast is for informational purposes only and does not constitute tax, legal, or investment advice.
For specific recommendations, please consult with your financial, legal, or tax professional.
Always leaves your text on red. Leaves your text on red.
Built the corporate group with $1,000 loan.
Tell us a little bit about how you actually came from.
Welcome to The Build Up, John Roa.
Thanks for having me. We're coming to you here from Studio 1873.
It's not 57% over $2.7 million.
So then, cheers.